I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah.
All things unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All right. Hello, Unexplained Ones. I am Dr. Mounts. Welcome back to another exciting episode of All Things Unexplained. Looks like I'm riding solo at the moment. Smitty cannot join us tonight, and CJ is dealing with some anomalous activity on her end somewhere in the All Things Unexplained studios. So hopefully she can squash down that paranormal activity on her end in no time, and she should be joining us at some point. As a matter of fact, that might be her, but I don't think she's letting me bring her on screen just yet. So looks like she's still dealing with it over there. So I appreciate everybody that's here so far. We've got an exciting show lined up for tonight. Please say hello in the comments. Make sure to check out the super chat, super stickers next to the chat bar after you say hello. Make sure to, if you want to support the podcast and really help us out, help us defeat the evil algorithms that are out there, please make sure to subscribe and like this video. Make sure to comment it and share on it as well. And we are really close to hitting 12,000 subscribers. Matter of fact, I have faith that we can hit it tonight. Let's see where we're sitting. We're sitting at 11,995 total subscribers, and we really appreciate all of you. So if you're tuned in tonight, make sure you never miss any of our videos, and all you have to do is hit the subscribe button. So joining us tonight is Arthur Lee Starks. He has spent over 30 years in the United States government as a technical enforcement officer, criminal investigator, special agent, and undercover operations, specializing in electronic surveillance and controlled deliveries. Oh, hello there.
Hello. I think you just said Arthur when you were trying to say author.
Arthur? I must have watched that Mole Rat too often, the little cartoon with
Must have.
Arthur. Is he a mole rat?
It was worth me chiming in just to point that out.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You know, normally I'm not doing the introduction, so
You're just stumbling all over it tonight, huh?
I am. I'm gonna go to a listener comment just for
That's
that.
me.
It's from All Things Unexplained. I'll be in short. So,
I don't know how to internet. Okay. I didn't know how to switch it to myself.
cue the. There we go. That's not creepy at all that we're joining our own chat there. Well, I'm glad you made it. I told everybody you were dealing with some anomalous activity.
Yes, very much so.
And guess what? We might hit 12,000 subscribers tonight.
Let's do it.
We
Subscribe,
can do it.
like, comment, share.
So we have a very exciting episode tonight, CJ.
Yeah, you have been really jonesing about this one, and I'm excited to learn more.
Awesome. Well, we have a special writer on with us, former military. You like the way I avoided author that time. So we have a special writer on with us. He's written a great new book. Like I said, he spent over 30 years in the government and military. Soon after 9/11, Lee found himself in Eastern Europe training allies in WMD undercover operations on behalf of the Department of Defense. So Lee is legit. Let me tell you that. Oh, thank you. Lee's career agencies include U.S. Army, U.S. Customs Service, Department of Defense, U.S. Treasury Department, Department of Homeland Security Investigations. Lee currently is retired from the government and trains LEO, military combat firearms, and precision rifle. Lee advises the U.S. government on electronic surveillance matters. And Lee has written Orbit,
What
a
does
curved
Lee do?
path
That's the better question.
following a single point. I know. I feel like all I have to do is teach some rando classes and take care of a dog every once in a while, and I can barely accomplish anything else. I mean, seriously, Lee is a motivation for us all. We have a link to purchase the book directly in the show description, or the link is there on the screen that you can see in front of you. A very minuscule percentage goes to support the show. Lee's also already, get this, CJ, working on a follow-up to Orbit, which will be available in 2024 and will be titled Spectra. So Lee is the author of Orbit. And thank you so much to Mary Lee Trepek, who has just subscribed. We really appreciate you, Mary.
Thanks, Mary.
I say hello, Mary Lou. Thank you for subscribing.
That's so funny. I saw her last name and I thought Tupac. We're on very different wavelengths here.
Mary Lee Tupac, thank you for subscribing. She might unsubscribe. I was telling Lee, he knows some folks in California, and CJ is from the tourist destination right above Napa, which is Palmdale.
Above Napa? Wow, you're okay.
North.
Forget it.
North. It's north of Napa.
It's definitely not north of Napa.
It's not north of Napa. Oh.
No.
Oh, forget my ring.
Anyways, nobody wants to hear us talk anymore. We need to bring Lee on here. He's the expert. Let's
get to a commercial and bring him out here. Here we go.
All Things Unexplained is free to watch on YouTube and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to support our show, you can visit our YouTube store. Additionally, you can find us on Venmo under All Things Unexplained. Be sure to check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. All proceeds from the sales of Dr. Mounce's books on Amazon and Audible also go straight to our show. Welcome, Lee. Hello.
Nice to meet you, CJ.
Nice to meet you too. Sorry, I'm running a little behind, but I am so excited to have you on the show. And I know that Dr. Mounce has been talking about you all week. You guys met in Twitter, is that correct?
Yeah. I listen and I don't partake usually. And I had Full Stack Logan's space on, and he covers a lot of the UFO stuff. And so for me, it's like always background noise. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, did I just hear my name? He's talking about my book. Holy crap.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then he invited me to come up and talk, and God, that turned into probably 45 minutes or so.
Incredible.
Totally unexpected, unprepared for it, and seemed to go okay. I was pretty nervous. I'm pretty nervous now. So
Nothing to be worried about here, I assure you.
Yeah.
Nothing to be worried about here. Well, exciting. So, Tim, yeah, loved listening to you. So, you clearly did a great job and wanted to bring you on to our show. We thought you had some really amazing things to share and say. And I did not get to hear all of those things. And also, typically, when we have somebody on the show who is an author, I try to read their books beforehand, but I didn't have a chance to read yours. So, you'll
No
have
worries.
to fill us in on all of the details, and I'll be sure to pick up a copy and
Yeah.
message
Thanks.
you with questions
I'll send
later
you one.
too. Yeah,
PM me and
please
I'll send
do.
you one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I love this concept. It's fiction, right? But it's
It
fiction
is.
based on a lot of your knowledge and experience.
Yeah. It's a work of love. It was, I'm not a sci-fi guy. And I was telling Tim earlier, I'm not a UFO guy. It just, some things happened along the way throughout the career that, sort of opened my eyes to some of the stuff. And, I try to read sci-fi and I end up like, I'm just not a sci-fi guy. And this book, it's, if you're ever been in the military, the government, law enforcement, even fire department, that team camaraderie of those units is in this book. You're going to get a taste of what it's really like to go through a real investigation, albeit this one is, UAP, UFO related, but someone out there is doing it. And I promise you that if you read this and you have that sort of a background, you're going to relate to it. It's going to resonate with you. Viewer discretion, some salty language in it, and maybe some military humor here and there. But it's sprinkled with a little bit of sci-fi towards the end. One of the things about the book, everything in it is true. Now, the story is a fiction, but all the details are true and accurate as best as I could find them or experience them. And all the little nuances along the way are accurate. When you read it, you're gonna read stuff about the Tic Tac. You're gonna read stuff about the cubes with the spheres in them. All that stuff is in here, and it's told in a story. The Team Usual guys are gonna, come into play and try to figure out what's really going on. And so it starts in a little town in Illinois where I happen to grow up at. And the very chapter 1 was a true event. It really happened. And I sent Tim a picture of the UFO as my daughter and I drew it. And it was middle of the day, hot summer day. We were in the pool and looked up, and I mean, as bold as Dallas, right there in front of us.
Wow.
That's what we saw. Each one of those little round balls were probably the size of a 2-story house.
Oh my gosh.
Or maybe even a little bit bigger. I compared it to my barn, and my barn is, super tall, super big. The structure itself was almost like reflective, like stainless steel. It was a breezy day, and it just sat there. There was no flex to the surface of the ball, so I right away thought that's a hard surface. It's not a balloon. And if you see the little arms,
Yes.
those things appeared almost like graphite black, and they were all connected just like you see in that picture there. There was no rivets, no seams, no stickers saying danger, no, United States Air Force logos. None of that was on that thing. It was just 3 shiny balls connected by those black tubes.
Wow, that is very unique. I can say we've had a lot of people come on and share their UFO, UAP stories, and I haven't seen anything quite like this one. What was your feeling when you and your daughter were sitting there
We
looking?
were playing catch with the Nerf football, and I had my back to it, and she tossed the ball to me, and then all of a sudden had O face and pointed pointed up to it and right away said, "What's that?" And I turned around and I looked, and that thing was no farther than 300 meters from us. I mean, it was that close.
Wow.
It was probably more like 250 meters. And it just sat there and it didn't do anything. And we just sat there and looked up at it. The music we had playing stopped. Right. If I would have left the pool and went right inside the house, there would have been a camera right there. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I got to get the camera. But then the other part of me is saying, you don't want to miss this.
Yeah, it's gonna be gone.
Whatever this is, don't miss it. Just sit here and look at it. And so we both probably, the whole entire event maybe lasted 2 to 3 minutes, I'd say. When it moved initially, it sort of wobbled in the sky like this, right? And it was oriented just exactly like that picture is. And then the wobble stopped. And then it wobbled again, real hard, real fast, and then it stopped. And then the acceleration that we watched, it was almost undescribable. It went due north from our location, and we were probably a mile or less from the Illinois River. And so it's easy to kind of, when you know the area, it's easy to sort of go, okay, it's about at this point, it's about at that point. And that thing, when it took off, it sort of went straight and then up. And within 2 seconds, it was completely gone. I mean, you couldn't see it anymore. It moved. It just kept accelerating to a point that it just disappeared. That was crazy.
Yeah. When you were standing there looking at it, were you feeling fear or awe or frozen?
I was feeling like this is something special. I don't know what this is. And like the character in the book, Jack Riggs, I've throughout my career been exposed to quite a lot of our inventory. And that's no inventory that I've ever been exposed to. One thing that it did also, when it initially sort of vibrated a little bit and then just stopped, the water in the pool kind of danced like an ultrasonic jewelry cleaner. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That's the only way I can describe it. It's just water just started dancing for a little bit. And I was thinking, oh crap, we could get shocked here or something. Maybe we should get out of the pool. And my stepdaughter was just eyes glued. I said something to her and she just focused in on that. And that was the only thing that she was seeing or hearing or, feeling, I think, at the moment. And when the thing left, one thing that throughout my career, if you witness something, it's best to either write it down or draw it out right away. And so she turned to me and said, "What was that?" I go, "Before we even talk about it, let's draw it out. I want you to draw what you saw. I'll draw what I saw. We'll compare notes." And she was probably 11 or 12 maybe at the time, I'm thinking. It's been quite a few years ago. But so, we drew the exact same thing. And then probably, I don't know, 10 years later or so, we were talking one day and I said, "Hey, draw that thing again that we saw. And I want to see how your memory is." And she drew the exact same thing again. So, it was wild. Immediately after that, me and her were like, we're going to find more UFOs. We're going to become UFO hunters. She was at that perfect age. And so where we live is near the Illinois River. There's a couple nuclear power plants there. And there's also a military range, probably straight down river, maybe 12 or 15 miles, Marseille's military. It's an army base. It's like a reserve base. And so quite often you hear of lights over there, which are probably helicopters at nighttime, if they have them on base then. But yeah, we spent probably the next couple of weeks like driving around in a pickup truck, trying to find some lights. And this particular thing, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Dave Marler and a couple of those other guys that are UFO hunters. I've sent this picture or a similar to a few of them, and I know them offline, like to, send them messages and that. And I think it was Dave Marler was the only one that came back and said, I got a witness that saw something similar, not quite the same, but in England.
Wow.
And every now and then I'll post it on Twitter. Bolo, be on the lookout, for this. If you see this, let me know. And so far, I've not met anyone else that's seen it.
Now, Lee, when you started this show with me, you told me that you were not a UFO guy and not a UAP guy, but I'm starting to think that maybe you are.
Well, when you're in the kind of careers that we've had, it's not a 9-to-5 job, right? You might go to work Sunday night and not come home till Thursday. And so you're 100% focused on the job. And, my career was fun. I had a blast. I mean, it was great. I would have probably paid them to be able to do some of the crap we did,
And that's what Tim and I do.
Yeah. Well, and since you're a taxpayer, thank you for my service. It was fun. You paid me well. But no, seriously, all the way through my career, we were just too busy doing operations and, getting ready for whatever the next emergency is. And so when I retired, all that comes to an end. And so, you try to find somewhere to outlet it, I guess. And, I've had enough of these occasional UFO experiences along the way that, I thought, hey, maybe I'll write a book. Me and a couple of guys that I worked with, we always said we'll write a book and title it "We Only Catch the Dumb Ones." Yeah, Tom Noor, if you're listening, that's for you. He was a partner of mine for a while.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's chapter 1. That's how the book opens, right? With this experience that you've had.
Right out of the gates. That was a real live experience that, I turned into a fictional story.
Yeah.
And Lee, can I ask you something about that? And, it may seem unusual, this spotting of a gigantic UFO, UAP in the middle of the day, but we have actually had a friend of CJ's on the show with us who, yes, indeed, did see a gigantic UFO and over a city. And I believe it was Queens, New York.
No kidding.
That a friend of CJ saw a gigantic UFO in the middle of the day with other people, by the way. And it departed in a very similar fashion, if I'm not mistaken, to what you are describing.
It helps to have at least one witness, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I brought this up with you in Logan's space. So shout out to Logan again on Twitter Spaces. Make sure to check out everything that he does there. Also, shout out to friend of the show, UFO Intros, who is joining us tonight, who also frequents Twitter Spaces and runs their own really amazing Twitter Spaces. So shout out to them. But I wanted to bring it up with you here for our listeners tonight, Lee. You can imagine it, and CJ and I also both have a friend here, our military consultant, Mr. J. And we hope you're watching Mr. J. And Mr. J had his own UAP, UFO encounter at night with a triangular craft, that silently and slowly moved above his house just down the road from us and did, just like this, shut off all his electronics. And his family was there with him. So shut off all electronics, cell phones, everything else. So they couldn't have taken a picture or video if they wanted to, right?
Right.
And it, just like you described it, sat there for a little while, silent and perfectly still, and boom, gone, zipped off. Well, And this seems like if you were to see this at night, it was illuminated, it might be triangular. Have you had any other triangular craft experiences or know of people who have?
I've met a few people who have and talked to a few. You know, one thing with my career, I've always had access to thermal imagery, night vision devices, all the toys that most people don't get to play with, they were assigned to us, right? And so there's been a couple times through night vision where it's clearly not an airplane, it's clearly not a helicopter. And you do see sort of like the glow of the three lights in the manner in which it moves is incredible. I mean, if I don't know if you guys ever looked through night vision, but if you look up, you'll see a million stars, and you will quite often notice satellites moving across the sky, and they're so obvious and so consistent in their speed that you instantly know that's a satellite. And occasionally you'll see one speed up, slow down, and turn. And, is that a satellite? I don't think so. If it is, it's a new kind that, we don't really have access or know about yet. And so, but yeah, I've talked to other people. I talked to one guy that saw the triangle. It was overseas and it was during the daytime. And, he described it sort of like black hole all the way around, had some lights that went around, and then the triangular pattern of undercarriage strobes, I guess I'd call them, or lights. It would be interesting. The one that my stepdaughter and I saw, it would really have been interesting also to see that at nighttime, to see, does it glow? To us, it looked like a solid object. But because of how they operate, or how we believe they operate, sometimes when they're powering up, things start glowing and getting intense. And yeah. And that one, it made no sound at all that we heard. And so,
wild. And it had no engine, form of propulsion, anything like that you could see? No.
It was, as ridiculous as that picture is, that's a good picture of it, And the thing that those arms that it connected to, in a million years, if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, draw a UFO," I would have never drawn that picture. That area that's sort of in between, you could see sky through it. So, I mean, it wasn't like a solid object. Those were actual poles of some sort connected. And so the whole center in between that triangle was open skies.
Have you come up with any theory on how it travels?
No, but, there's so much going around about the, anti-gravity. And I went down a rabbit hole a couple times on some of the old beliefs that they thought they could spin mercury in some sort of an electrical field and it would, behave differently. There was some, do you know who Boyd Bushman is?
I do not.
He was an engineer, I believe, for either Skunk Works or the other big one. And YouTube used to have, I hope I don't get you in trouble here, I just realized YouTube used to have quite a few of his videos out there, and he's passed now. He's an older guy, and he had some videos out on YouTube where they were experimenting with magnetics, and he would go up to the top of a building, drop a magnet off the building, and then drop a magnet off through a conical tube, and it would accelerate. The two, you would think that if you're dropping a magnet through some sort of metal, it's going to slow it down.
Right.
And he's, I believe, and I might have this wrong, but they were able to get it to accelerate and also to slow down. And so this was videos that he probably recorded, I'm guessing in the 1980s.
Okay.
And they all just disappeared off of YouTube one day. Imagine
Oh,
that.
Whoa.
of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really interesting. And you know what
Yeah.
this reminds me of? It reminds me of, CJ, our very first episode ever with Mr. Billy. And so
Yeah.
Mr. Billy was not his real name, Lee, but he was a law enforcement witness of one of the most well-known UFO sightings in history in the 70s in Flora, Mississippi. Over a dozen law enforcement officers at night uh, observed and tracked and trailed this UFO for quite a while.
Yeah.
And after the incident, and this had never been heard before, Mr. Billy revealed that he got a phone call at the sheriff's office, and it was none other than Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
Nice.
And Dr. Hynek revealed something quite startling to him. And keep in mind, this is, what year was it, CJ? Was it 77? It was in the 70s.
It was in the 70s, yes.
Yep. And Dr. Hynek said, we have this theory that these things, which have been reported all over the world, that they can somehow harness the power of gravity, and that somehow they hone in on these magnetic lines that run around the globe. And that really is strikingly similar to what you were just describing.
Yeah. I mean, it's my education. I was a chemistry major, so I have a little bit of science, in me, a little bit. And, just putting two magnets together and then flipping them over, and that idea that they repel each other in the simplest basic thought, something's occurring there. And, now extrapolate that out to devices and all the engineering behind devices. I don't think we're that far away. And my book will lead you down a hole of we're not that far away, because some of it is probably already here and is run by defense contractors. And so that's the tease for the book.
Yes,
right?
That's exciting. That sounds like a great book.
Is it NHI or is it DOD?
Ooh, we ask that same question every day here on All Things
It's a
Unexplained.
burning question.
It is a burning question. And I know that throughout my career, I've been to some pretty secret bases. I've not been to Area 51, but I've been to several others. And I had a great opportunity to see some technology in use, like back in 1990, 91, in that era. And the stuff that I got to see being used didn't become really public information until probably late 90s. And they were actively testing some stuff, weapon systems, I'll say, that early. And they had specific plans for it. I mean, it's all out there now. Basically, lasers. They were trying to figure out how to get lasers possibly. I want to make sure I don't go into a bad area here. Possibly on a ship deck in rolling seas and be able to aim it accurately. Mm-hmm. And so I got to see some of that stuff. And I was like, man, I'm glad I'm on this team. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Where I'm on the right side.
Yes.
And some of the, that was an area that I got to access. So half of the other research that they're doing, are you familiar with Pantex facility? Have you ever heard of that?
Heard of Pantex, yes.
Yeah, Pantex is basically where they assemble warheads and deassemble them if necessary. And I've been there. I had a blue badge there, which gave me access to a lot of the base. And most of that base is underground, and it's out in the panhandle of Texas. I can say it because you can Google it in maps and it'll, tell you how long of a drive it would be to get there from your house. So There's no secret there.
We're
But,
taking a
you know,
drive to the
yeah.
panhandle of Texas.
Yeah, well, what CJ and I don't have to go far to visit a spooky underground base within our own county, as a matter of fact, CJ, Big Hole
Oh,
Road
I mean,
facility, which they say was the inspiration for the creepy facility in season 1 of Stranger Things, and may or may not be involved in a book that we're working on. But it's
Cool.
technically owned by AT&T. It's owned by AT&T, but it has no known function. But it's
Yeah. You know, I'm glad
widely known.
you just said that it's owned by AT&T, which I'm sure 99% of the listeners and other people would never imagine that AT&T could be involved in anything other than telephones, right? And
Yeah.
I had an occasion to go out to Hollywood on one job, and I got to go to where Warner Brothers does research for future things.
Oh,
And holy crap, man, they had some really, really advanced stuff that some of it still hasn't come out. So I
so
can't
this
really
is not the
discuss
Warner
it.
Brothers studio.
No,
This is
it was
separate.
Warner
place?
Brothers has a couple locations, but this
Okay.
particular experience that we had was on Warner Brothers studio.
Oh, it
So
was.
on the
Okay.
studio there, they have sort of a technical research facility
Mhm.
that they're always thinking ahead on entertainment, right?
Yeah, entertainment. Yeah,
Entertainment. Yeah.
art
So
mimics life, mimics art, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And so I guess the point is a lot of these private companies or bigger companies that you wouldn't even associate having anything to do with anything like this.
Sure.
And some of them are, it's
Yeah.
trying to figure
So-
out which ones.
I think I was just jumping in here when Tim was going over your background. Would you share just a little bit with us, recap
Yeah.
what your
yeah.
background is?
My Army time was very, very small in the length of my career. When I was able to leave the Army, I went to work for U.S. Customs.
Okay.
And at that time, I was a forensic chemist, but I did no chemistry. I basically set up an electronics enhancement lab for the service. And we did video and audio enhancements for, the various cases. From there, I got sucked back to the Army and the Defense Department. And when I was with them, at that time, we did special investigations. And it was wide reaching. It could be hazardous waste, burning pits. You've probably heard of burning pits.
Oh boy, yes.
Yeah, stuff like that. And we got into some weapons management and retrievals from foreign countries. And so we did some of that stuff. From there, I went back to work at U.S. Customs again. This time I went to the Office of Investigations and started, that time in my career it was a great agency, great people that I worked with, and it was fun. Most people don't think of U.S. Customs as like doing undercover stuff.
We're on the wrong side.
Yeah.
U.S. Customs.
Yeah. And so back in those days, it was almost 100% narcotics that I got involved with. But they did all kinds of other stuff, fraud investigations, weapon proliferation investigations, all kinds of stuff. And I stayed with them for quite a while. And then right when 9/11 happened, I was still technically a customs employee, but the State Department, the Defense Department were sort of putting together some training programs. And I got sucked into that and went to Eastern Europe, a lot of different Eastern Europe countries, sort of teaching the allies, controlled deliveries and interviews. I almost said interrogations. I'm sorry, interviews. All that kind of stuff. And that went on for a few years.
I'm
And
guessing
then,
you saw customs change a whole lot
oh,
after 9/11.
oh God. Well, it's sad, but we always say the terrorists have no idea how much damage they did just hitting those buildings. They ruined perfectly good agencies, for
Yeah.
this. The government always has to react by changing something, right? Whether it's for the good or the better, people need, leadership here. So let's change something. And so they merged all kinds of different agencies into the Department of Homeland Security. And I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking on behalf of any of them, any of those government agencies. I'm no longer affiliated with any of them at this point. But so there was growing pains, and
Sure.
yeah, life went on. Then I sort of went to work at a different office with Homeland Security Investigations and sort of sunsetted my career there. And it was almost as much fun as the beginning of my career. So the last probably 5-6 years were just, running and gunning every day. We were doing stuff and having a blast, and got to go, a lot of different places. I think in my career, I've probably been to 25 or 26, 27 different countries. And so, yeah, I had no idea until I was, leaving. And somebody said, holy crap, man, you've been to a lot of places. Like, really? I go, does stopovers count? Yeah. And so then I retired probably at the end of 2018, early 2019.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then started writing books.
Well, not initially. After being held captive for 30 years with the government, and really, when I say you may go to work on Monday and not come home till Thursday or Friday, that's it in the type of work that we did. And I was missing all my kids' stuff. I watched them from afar mostly. I'd try to be a decent dad and come home when I could, but I missed a lot of stuff. So I told my wife that when I'm done, I'm going to be done, and I'm not going to miss anymore. I'm going to go to all the football games, all the girls' basketball games, and all that stuff, and did that. And so something happened to me around 2019. I had a near-death thing, and that changed everything. I mean, for me personally. And that sort of was a mechanism. I always liked writing. I'm Mary Lou Trapek, that first person that subscribed, was my editor for this book. Hello, Mary Lou. And as she will tell you, when I type, the thoughts are just coming, right? And I might misspell a lot just to get it on print.
Sure.
And so then I take that stack to my editor, Mary Lou, and she makes sense of it. And so I've always been that way. I love to write stories, short stories. I've written quite a few of those. And, it sounded like a good thing to do. The original book that I wanted to do, I don't think would have survived the editing process through DOPSR and the Department of Homeland Security. And so I was talking to a fellow author, said, write a fiction. I'm like, what do you mean, write a fiction? He goes, if you write a fiction and you don't cross any of the lines of your NDAs, they will probably rubber stamp it for the most part, And so I went, that's even better. Are you telling me I can make some stuff up? Cool.
Yeah.
That'll make it better. And so,
Lee,
so that's
Lee, I'm sorry, for our listeners, can you tell us what exactly is DOPSR?
Defense Office of Pre-Publication. It's any Department of Defense or military employee. If they want to write anything, you have to submit it through the DOPSR office, and they will review it. including fictions, but they're very, very stringent about crossing lines of, what could be a classified area or a secret area. And sometimes that boundary gets to be huge. And so to include anything in there would just be one big black line coming through. And the book that I kind of wanted to write was sort of a parallel documentary of some of the current events that are going on with maybe some of the stuff that I saw along the way. And it wasn't going to happen. And so we got I think a pretty good fiction story. It's so far it's gotten really good reviews. I'm happy.
Yeah, I can't wait to read it. Truly,
Yeah.
it sounds amazing. Are you comfortable talking about your near-death experience?
Sure. Sure.
I would love
Yeah.
to. We've had a few near-death experience guests and experts on our show, and I find them incredibly fascinating. So I would love
Cool.
to hear yours.
Yeah, I think looking back on it, when I separated service, I had probably a boatload of PTSD, and it wasn't necessarily any things that I saw or any things that we did along the way. It was, I always felt like with the guys that I worked with, I'm going to be the guy to make sure they get home safe tonight, right?
Yeah.
It was a burden that I put on myself that probably half my teammates didn't even realize that, I put that burden on myself. But I loved my guys. I loved the teams. And all of a sudden, when that ends, it's just over. And you miss the camaraderie. You miss the going to work on Sunday and sitting in a car with William. If he's listening, he's a character in the book. And, you talk about so much stuff and you experience so much stuff with these guys, kicking in doors, going upstairs, good guys versus bad guys stuff. Right. And when it's done, it's really just done. And I've never not been on some sort of a team somewhere, from the day I was born, and played baseball and did all that stuff. And then for me, it carried over into my career path. And so I had a lot of PTSD, and I can't believe I'm admitting this out loud in front of everybody, but I think that it was almost sort of connected. I was healthy. I had no illness, no sickness. It happened on May 10th. And on January 1st, I started training for the Appalachian Trail. Me and a friend of mine, we're going to hike a short segment of it, the Shenandoah Trail part, right?
Okay,
it's like, I don't know, 120 miles, something like that. And so, I was training like a fool. I was putting a rucksack on, going 4 miles, maybe running the last 2 miles, like 4 or 5 days a week. And I was probably in better shape then than even before I departed service, shamefully have to say it. And my family and I went out for dinner. It was a Friday night and everything was normal. We went to this restaurant in town here. And when we came back to get in the car, my kids were probably junior high then. So they were at a really fun age then. Yeah. This kind of strange looking guy was walking down the sidewalk, right? And my wife is one of those people that can strike up a conversation with anybody. And, she's just super friendly and super outgoing. And so the kids and I got in the car and she's talking to this kind of strange looking dude. And then she gets in the car and says, wow, that was different. We're like, what? She goes, this guy just walked up and asked if your husband knows what he has. And then the kids right away, not it. That was weird, So I was the last one. I didn't touch my nose apparently in time. And almost immediately after that, I started getting this like black and white vision. Imagine like an old black and white television set that you got to, turn the antennas to get it to come in because the picture's kind of snowy.
Sure.
It initially started like just a little snowy vision, right? And so I was like rubbing my eyes and stuff. And we had to go pick up one of my daughter's friends. And so we drove over to their house. And as we got close to that house, the vision stuff was getting worse. And now I was got what I called a sour stomach. If I drink, I don't know, lime juice or something like that on an empty stomach, I'll have to have a Tums because my stomach just can't handle that, right? And that's what it felt like. It felt like something like that. And so we talked to the family for a little bit, got, the girl in the car, and we took off. And my vision just started really deteriorating. And this like acid in my stomach started really building up, right? And my wife was like, are you okay? And I go, yeah. I think I just need a Tums. To me, that's like the magic cure-all. Put a Tums
me
in,
too.
you'll be fine. Rub some dirt on it, you're good. And then I told her, I said, I'm having a problem with my eyesight. She's like, what do you mean? I go, it's like everything's black and white and snowy. It's really weird. I can't describe it. And it got to a point, it continued to get worse. And it got to the point where I'm just tuning everybody out. And in my brain was like 100% on, firing on all cylinders. I'm thinking very clearly, very coherently, analyzing what's going on with me, right? Why is my eyesight this way? Why do I have this pain? And then suddenly it occurred to me that, oh, I might be in real trouble here. Maybe I'm having a heart attack, right? And I'm telling you, like that, a twinkle of an eye, I was somewhere else. I was no longer in the car. And the room that I was in, I describe it as all the walls were like that real bright pearloid white, almost like a white that was alive, right? And instantly I was like, wow, nothing hurts. I feel like really good, where am I? What is this? Where the walls and the ceiling met, you couldn't see a seam. It was like one piece, right? And over to my right was, I'm going to call him a person. At the moment, I didn't know if it was God or Jesus, or I'm Christian, so I'm going to put that out there. And I always had this vision: when you die, you're going to probably, first I always felt I'm going to meet my grandma, and I'm going to meet my cousin Greg, and then everybody else, right? And none of that happened. This person was sort of right next to me, asking me some questions. And then off to my left, there was probably like maybe 4 or 5 others. And the strange thing is, I couldn't see anyone's face. And it caused me to think, why can't I see? I could perfectly see this person's body, but when he would turn and ask me stuff, I couldn't describe him to you. I don't know what he looked like, right? And then I had this feeling that off to the right, the room sort of went up, and there was like a doorway back there. And in front of me, this entire wall was, I call it a video of what was going on inside the car. I could see everything in the car, and it was chaos. I mean, they were upset, right? And I've described it as, it almost seemed like technology. You hear near-death people explain that they rised out of their body and they could look down and see, the doctors working on them or something of that. No, this wasn't like that. This was like the entire wall was like a big screen TV, and it was what was going on inside the car, almost like through someone's eyes. And so the person that was next to me had on the wall, there was like almost like a sort of a desk that come out, like he was, I don't know, writing or taking notes. I don't recall specifically him actually writing stuff, but that's kind of what it felt like, right? And to be honest with you, I was so overwhelmed with how incredible I felt that it was undescribable. And I'm sure that what you would think you would feel when you go to heaven is pretty good, right? And it's kind of what it was like. It was, I had no sadness whatsoever. Everything just felt good. I was curious who these people are over here and why I can't see this dude's face, right? That don't seem right, but okay. And there came a point where he was like, you know, you ready to go? You know, we got to go. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he was kind of gesturing that we're going to go up that angle and out that door. And I was like, well, you know, what about them in the car? You know, and he's like, well, what about them? And I said, well, I think I need to go back there. And I can't remember the conversation 100%. It's been a couple of years. I believe that he told me the only thing to go back to is the family, right? Like he's telling me, if you're going to go back, you have to go back for your family. And I'm like, okay, well, you know, how do I get back? And he's like, you got to figure that out. You got to focus. You got to, you know, I can't do this for you. Only you can get yourself back. And I remember hearing a siren in the background through the wall of the big screen TV, we'll call it. And I could hear that, but it didn't register. And so now I'm like in this room looking at this big screen wall going, oh, all right, I got to get back. So I'm focusing, I'm thinking, and all of a sudden, boom, I opened my eyes. The car door opened. That was an ambulance pulling up. And the ambulance dude was like right there. And I'm good. I'm good. And my wife, everybody in the car is looking at me like, what do you mean you're good? You know, I go, no, I was bad, but now I'm good. Everything is fine. I feel fine. I got no problem. The pain, vision, all that stuff was gone. And so the ambulance guy was like, okay, you know, what's your name? And so I said my name. What day of the week is it? Friday? We just got back from dinner. You know, the president is so-and-so. What else do you need? You know, and he's like, well, we need to get you back in the ambulance and we'll check you out. And I'm like, yes, let's do that. Because, you know, whatever this was, and I didn't tell anybody, obviously, about what really happened, you know. And so he said, let's, you know, we'll put you in the ambulance. So I go to get out of the car and they're like, no. We're going to bring the gurney over and we'll help you on the gurney. And I'm like, no. I'm not doing that. All I could think, this is stupid. I'm sorry. Dale Earnhardt crashed his car and he's in the ambulance, right? And the car was sitting on all four wheels. And he said, I think the car still runs. He hopped out of the ambulance and ran over to the car and drove it away, right? That was the only thing that was in my brain at that moment was that scene. I go, no, I'm walking to that ambulance. And so I walked over, and climbed up in it. And then the next guy like hooked me up to all the stuff. And so, you know, same battery of questions. Tell me what happened. I told him everything. And then I said, you know, I wear a Fitbit. I know it's not like hardcore science or anything, but my phone's in the car. Maybe we could download Fitbit and see if there was anything on that. And you could see the pulse just bottomed out and then, you know, come back up. And so Fitbit wise, there was science. But no, so they hooked me up to all the stuff. And then we went to the hospital for the blood test, because if you do have a heart attack, you know, certain enzymes pop up, and then same thing with stroke. And I was passed with flying colors. And later that night, they said, listen, you need to follow up. And I'm like, Roger that, man, I'm following up. So I called my doctor the next day and told them what happened. And I think they even got me in on a Saturday. The next day, drove up there, went through all the stuff that they had, and then they made another appointment for me, I think, on the following Monday. And so I'm sitting there with my doctor, and I did tell my wife what happened, what really happened, on the way home from the hospital. And, you know, she's 1,000% supportive, and, you know, it was fine. I was afraid that, you know, people are going to think I'm really nuts, right?
No.
And so when I was up to the doctor, I felt like I don't really want to tell him this, but I probably should, right? And so I said, hey, doc, come here. By the way, I kind of went somewhere. He's like, what do you mean? I go, you know, when it happened, I kind of like left my body and was somewhere else, and I could see what was going on in the car. And he's like, oh, geez, you know, so here's some more tests we're going to do. And then I told him I was scheduled to leave to go do the Appalachian Trail. Like, in 10 days, can we get all this stuff in? He's like, dude, you're not doing the Appalachian Trail. I go, well, can we get it all in, you know, before we leave? And he's like, well, let me see. And so he got everything in except for like the really important one, the stress test. He couldn't get it in for, you know, a few weeks. And I said, all right, well, when I get back from the Appalachian Trail, then I'll hook up with you and we'll go do the stress test. He's like, dude, you can't do this Appalachian Trail. I go, listen, I've been training for this. I tell you what, if I go do the Appalachian Trail and I die, you're right, you win. But if I come back, then I'll do your test, you know? And so I went and did the Appalachian Trail, didn't die, almost died, but didn't, and then came back and did the stress test. And they never did come up with anything that it could be physically. And so from there, things were different for me. Things were different. I've been a lifelong hunter, you know, hunting people, hunting animals, all that stuff. I no longer had a taste to even go hunting, right? I still go hunting now with my college roommate, who is a character in the book. And now if I take a deer, it's more for providing food than the thrill of, you know, killing something, right? And it's become really, really kind of spiritual to do. So that's a good thing. This is going to sound a little strange, but
you're on the right show.
Yeah, all things unexplained. Right?
Come to the right place.
Animals doesn't, you know, I used to like, didn't really think one way or the other. Yeah, you know, there's a squirrel, that's cool. You know, hope he leaves me alone. But now it's like, I still hike and run. We have a lot of forest preserves around here where I live. And so they're kind of almost tame deer, but I can like get right up on them, and, you know, they don't seem to be bothered by me. And even some birds, you know, it's like I can get pretty darn close to them and just sort of look at them and, hi bird, how are you today? You know? And I would never, ever had anything like that before. And then the really strange, unexplained part of it, for a very, very long time, I would wake up at almost the same time every night, like 2:58, 2:59 in the morning, and be drawn almost to look out our window. Where we live is sort of out in the country, so we don't have a lot of neighbors. And it was like I'm looking out this window going, all right, what am I supposed to be looking at, you know? This is dumb, just go back to bed. But it would happen all the time. Then with writing this, really, really sort of strangeness would happen. writer's block. You get writer's block sometimes.
Mhm.
And I would get writer's block. And then usually I have this sort of regiment I do every night before bed. I like to maybe listen to some music or something, tones. I'm a kind of a tone guy. I like listening to tones, and say my prayers before bed every night. And then when I would have a block on the book, I would focus on, where that blocking point was, and just sort of really, really concentrate, even if it was for like 5 minutes, on this problem I'm having with this book, right? The next day, every single time, I would have 3, 4, 5 different ways I could go, like instant answers the next day. And so when I finished it, and I got the very first copy from the publisher, it was like, wow, I did this. And then I had to stop myself and go, no, I didn't do this. I go, you did this. Thank you for all those downloads all along the way. And so, so downloads are, I think, I never really had a whole bunch of downloads before.
I'm still waiting on mine.
Yeah, exactly.
But we do hear that a lot with people that come on our show, this concept of downloading information, that it just really comes to them. And a lot of what you discussed in your experience, we have heard very similar concepts and experiences as well. So you are not alone in what you have felt, but obviously the experience is yours alone and what it has done for your life. And it's beautiful. It sounds like you're very well connected to the universe around you now.
Yeah, I think so. I try. I mean, you can ask my wife whenever we have campfires here in the backyard, and I'll just be all night long staring up at the stars, right? Just waiting. Something's coming. I want to see it. I know I don't want to miss it, whatever it is. And I sent Tim some orb things that we filmed, and, a few other things. And so I think, everybody sort of feels something's coming, right? And I don't know what it is, but here we go. Can the viewer see this picture?
We can see the picture, so you'll have to describe what we're seeing here.
Okay, this just recently happened. I'm driving down our little 2-lane highway, right? And not a whole lot of traffic. And I see we get bald eagles out here where we live. It's fun to see them, because there was a point in time in Illinois you wouldn't ever see any. And where we live at is a river sort of goes through that's big enough that we have eagles, right? And so I'm seeing this bald eagle, and it's coming, and it's hauling the mail, man. I mean, it's flying flat, straight. So I pull my truck over, and I'm going to get a picture of this thing. And so the first picture was the first picture. I just sort of, did this on the phone, got two real quick pictures. And the point of this is, if you reference that telephone pole and then reference where the eagle is, and then the second picture, you'll notice it doesn't move very far. Can you see that?
So,
yep.
And so so
CJ, do you see the bald eagle above I'd say at 2:00?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then go to the next one. And it's probably at 1:00 maybe.
Yes.
Still. And so my point in pointing that out to you is, I'm stationary in a truck. I'm looking at this bird, want to get a picture of it. And so he was moving so fast that I had to just snap 2 real quick pictures, right? Now, in the second picture, look underneath the wire. Can you zoom in on that at all, Tim? Okay. If you look under the bottom wire, you're going to see a couple spots in this picture.
Yeah, I see them.
Okay. Go to the next one, Tim.
There we go.
Oh,
right.
Whoa.
You see the bald eagle? You see his white head and his tail? Now look at those 3 spots.
Yeah.
Okay, go to the next one, Tim.
What in the world?
Really strange.
Okay, Mick West, is that a bird?
I mean, it has more of a disc shape, or it also reminds me of the infamous jellyfish UFO.
Well, but I don't really notice anything hanging down underneath it.
No, I
No.
don't either.
Okay, now because of my background, I have to try to think about this logically, right? How fast does a bald eagle fly? Well, they can go anywhere from like 55 miles an hour all the way up to almost 100, depending on the wind and the current and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's the speed demon in our area. We do have a falcon that I've seen. He would be the speed demon. This would be the Ferrari, and the other one would be the really fast McLaren. But what else? We have a lot of geese. We have a lot of other birds. But when you think about that first picture with those three things not in it, and then 1 second later, those three things are in it, logically, what bird could overtake the speed of a bald eagle and get in the frame and really in the center of his, if you drew that up and down, those three things are in the center area of where the eagle is almost perfectly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so
it kind of rolls out smudges on the lens. Sometimes you hear that too, right? Because they're not there in the first picture. But then, boom, in the next picture, there they are. And just looking at them, they do appear like spatially that they are out there in your field of vision beyond the pole and above the field somewhere. That's just what they look like.
now when
They
I
also
took,
make a triangle.
well, that's
what I'm-
another thing I was going to
yeah.
say. Notice how they're in a triangle also. When I took those pictures, obviously I did not see those things, right? It was later when I looked back at the pictures and went, oh, great. Now they're following me. Great. Here we go. But, I blew them up. And then I have a MUFON friend on the East Coast. And I don't want to get into any politics on MUFON, but I have a friend that, is with them. And so I sent her these pictures, and whatever analyzing that they do, she said that it looked like it had some sort of electrical aura around it. She could, obviously couldn't say if, yeah, by God, you got a UFO there. That's the real deal, but it sure does look suspicious, doesn't it?
Well, you definitely got a bald eagle.
Yeah.
And that in of itself is a really impressive catch there.
I've seen a lot of different photos from a lot of different folks firsthand. And to me, this one is pretty compelling for what it is.
Sure.
I mean, I think it really is, and I can't get really very many people interested in this photo because it just doesn't really look that appealing. But knowing that, I took it personally and I snapped those photos literally within 1 second apart, and then come back and see that's, kind of proof for me that it's legit. And that first one, if you could zoom in on those other two, they don't appear as like a solid structure. They kind of appear almost like scraggly lines or something. And she felt that could be the electrical system of, if it is, a UFO, that could be the electrical portion of whatever drives the thing. And they're moving so fast that you can't see them anyway. But to pick it up on one snap was just like a 1 in a million shot, really,
We've had a lot of people come on with incredible shots. And like you're saying, it's hard to get anybody interested in them. And I don't understand why. Remember when we had Cheryl on, Tim, with what she snapped from outside of her airplane? We were flabbergasted. And I thought we were going to break the internet with this post.
Right.
Nobody cared. Not
Nobody
a single
cared.
person. Like,
And Lucy Castle in the UK with the Tic Tac photo in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
All of them in the middle of the day.
I've kind of come to realize that a lot of the UFO community is dog eat dog. And I wrote a silly book, right, that about UFOs. So I'm bad like that too. I'm trying to make $1 off it. And trust me, you don't make much off a book. Tim, you guys have written books. You know that you don't make much off them. But it almost seems like the UFO community itself is so, I want to get the first thing that's big. And then the next guy, no, I'm bigger. And it's almost like watching what's going on in politics. It's almost like watching Democrats versus Republicans. Who can scream the loudest will be the most noticed,
True.
And that often doesn't lead to progress.
No,
it does not.
It leads to the opposite of progress, which is sensationalism, because people are inclined, as they were in the 50s, right, when they would get invited onto television shows and radio shows, and they would be paid for it, right? They were inclined to come up with bigger and wilder stories so they would continuously be asked back on. And I feel like we kind of are in a similar situation again, and we need to be aware of that and be careful that we don't lose ourselves in sensationalism and then in general just blowing it up way above what it really is.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%.
I will say there are some personalities in our realm that do that. It's a lot of competition, what have you. But in terms of individual humans who are interested in the UAP subject, in aliens, in the universe, what have you, they tend to be very open-minded, accepting people. Everybody that we've had on our show as guests have been really brilliant and far more connected to this world that we live in this universe that we live in than anybody else. Now, in terms of big personalities on podcasts and what have you, you get that in any realm, right? Everybody's trying to get the attention and get the likes and the clicks, and it's insane what you have to do to try and get attention. And I'm not very good at trying to get attention, so I only joined X like 3 weeks ago.
Really?
Well, maybe 6 weeks ago, but
okay.
I called it Twitter earlier when I was on there. But I think I have like 100 and something followers on X. I'm really, really bad at.
Well, cool. Follow me. I'll follow you.
That's how it works. That's how it works.
That's how it works.
Networking live on the air. Yeah. And speaking of clicks, Lee was kind enough to send us some really interesting videos as well. And we're so pleased to be joined by Lee Starks, author of Orbit. You can pick that up on Amazon, and we have links in the show description to grab it right now. And Lee, I think some of these were through night vision, which is very interesting. Maybe you could just describe what we're seeing in some of these. I want to start with this one because I believe that you said that this was Starlink.
Yes. Starlink is one of the things that get the 911 calls. Hey, there's something up in the sky. There's a bunch of them, right? And it's always ends up being Starlink. And this one, can we start it over, Tim?
Yep. Let's see.
If you watch this, you're going to see Starlink disappear one pod at a time. It's, a whole train of satellites, and you notice how they're just sort of disappearing.
Yes. From like the top.
Right.
Down.
Right. And so that has been reported by a number of people of, it was a bunch of ships, one after the other, and they just, one by one, they disappeared. Well, what's happening is the satellite is going beyond the scope of the sun rays, right? And so the sun no longer is hitting the satellite. And so it gives you the appearance of just sort of flying off into nothing. And it's not that. And I just sent that. A lot of people haven't really seen Starlink yet. And this one is basically a satellite. And so you're going to see the satellite moving across the sky, heading like down on the frame.
Is it the black spot?
No, it's
okay.
Started over. It might be glitching out because of the connections. Tim has them at his location. But basically, as I said earlier, a satellite.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. See,
It's right in the middle.
Okay.
And it's headed down. And that's just a satellite moving across the sky. It's consistent. It's no strobe lights like on an airplane or a helicopter. It's just out there in space on orbit, right? Just continually going. And so I wanted Tim to see these. And he's also got a couple that we'll probably see next, I'm guessing, of orbs. Now this one, look at the size of that. And that was over top a subdivision in the town I used to live in up north. And it suddenly just starts accelerating and leaving and just going due north away from us.
Yeah.
And that one had me so curious. The next day, I went and door knocked off those neighbors. Probably thought I was crazy. Like, hey, did you guys happen to see this light last night? I mean,
It starts.
You know how
bright.
big the moon is on a full moon?
Right.
That thing was probably twice the size of the moon on a full moon. And we sat there and watched it for long enough that I could go dig out the night vision and film it. And then all of a sudden it just took off and left.
So when you're using the night vision, are you filming from the actual night vision device, or are you filming from your phone through the night?
This one is a PVS 14 and it's monocular. So I'm basically holding my cell phone up to it. Yeah. And there's some popular videos out. Do you remember, I think it was on the USS Roosevelt, the triangles?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, usually on Navy ships, they have what they call Snoopy teams, right? And Snoopy teams have, if something is close enough to the ship that they can actually get eyes on it, they'll send a Snoopy team out to record it. And they have all kinds of different recording devices. But the one that you see with the triangles is almost identical in appearance to what I was doing. Okay. And I can't say how I got the video, but they asked what my opinion on the video. And my opinion was whoever filmed this wasn't a Snoopy. He was probably either a SEAL that happened to be on that boat, or maybe a Marine that happened to be on that boat that had this equipment assigned to his persons, because it was clearly a PVS 14 and clearly it was being recorded by a cell phone. Snoopies will have very, very good, sophisticated, like high dollar cameras with night visions attached to them. And so it's altogether different. And I basically did what that video was doing there. Okay. I'm sorry. Did that make sense?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
And it totally answered my question. That's what I wanted to know. Was it straight through the camera or through your phone?
Yeah.
And here we have another orb, I believe.
That one's not showing. Oh, okay. Yeah. Now, I believe this one is pretty short video. One of the other, when I sent them to you on text message, I wasn't sure if I was grabbing the right one, so I probably sent you a couple extras. But basically, these orbs are almost like what you see Chris Bledsoe filming.
Yes.
And there's one that I sent Tim that you'll see in a minute that there's no sound. You don't hear any motor noise at all. So a couple of them sort of zigzag across the sky, not in a straight line, but just sort of meander here, meander there. What else? If you zoom in on them, the color is very similar to what Chris Bledsoe's are. I'm not saying they're the same thing, but it's clearly not a helicopter, airplane, satellite. It's something else.
Lee, did your orb sightings start before or after your near-death experience?
I would say both. It didn't start because of right after the near-death. There was one evening, probably right after 9/11, we had night vision out and we saw one, didn't know what it was, thought it was like just, I don't know. I didn't know what it was. And we watched it travel from house to house above the rooftops. And we watched this on night vision, right? And when I saw it go to a house and stop, and it stayed there for a minute, and then it went to another house and stopped. This is going to sound crazy. The only thing I'm thinking, God dang it, the government's got some new kind of a thing where they can, or count bodies in the house, right? Like that was the only thing I was thinking. Or whatever it is trying to figure out how many people are inside, because why would they go to every house?
Yeah.
And, we watched it probably go over 4 or 5 other houses before, it was gone. And when we saw it, we were almost dumbfounded, like, what was that? That doesn't make any sense.
So tell me just real quick, why would your mind go there? Is that something from like working in customs that you would like immigrants or
everybody's guilty until proven innocent,
okay.
including the government, No, I'm just joking when I say that. No, I think with my career, it was, if it's logical, it makes sense. It has to be logical, right? If I'm sitting here interviewing you and your timeline isn't matching up with a timeline that I actually have of you, what you're saying is not logical. And
Gotcha.
so I think just because of my career, everything has to make sense. It just has to,
yes.
right? And so we saw that, and that made really no sense at all. And so my brain automatically went with, all right, somebody's got that, and they're obviously flying it. What's it doing? Why is it going house to house to house? And I actually, I gave MUFON sort of a not a thumbs down, but I didn't speak real well of them, and it was because of this incident. I thought, all right, I'm going to be one of those guys. I'm going to, like, nobody's looking. I went on the MUFON site and recorded it, right?
Yeah.
And it was a pretty good description, I thought. Didn't hear squat back from them. And I thought, all right, they must hear a lot of crazy stories, right? They didn't follow up on it. And no, I don't know. They seemed so not interested in it. And I thought, well,
got a 2-star review on Yelp from you.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like, well, I'm a credible guy. I can, sure, they'll listen to me, right? No, they didn't care. They didn't care. And so,
they might have cared and just not let you know they cared. They filed that.
And so there were a few other things like that I've seen those types of orbs before. The ones that we occasionally see now are so much more bright and intense, right? Like the ones that I saw doing that with the house, you couldn't see it with your naked eye at all. And it was dark out, and the orb itself, I would say, was probably the size of maybe like a basketball. It wasn't huge. It was pretty small. But when you pulled the night vision down, you couldn't see it at all. And so that made me, go, wow, what was that? That's crazy. And then you put the night vision back up, and there it is. And so,
wow, I need to get some night vision.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm learning here.
Yeah, that's a part of my job I miss, because they got really good shit there. I don't.
Look, that's a tax write-off, CJ. If you do a paranormal podcast, night vision is a tax write-off. So
it seems legit. I'd go with
legit.
that. Yeah. And so there were a few of those. There was something that happened real early in my career that with the Army that I just can't go into, other than saying made me believe then, or at least question, that, okay, we have something. I don't know what it is for sure. I didn't get to like lick my chops and cut into it or anything, but I did see something a long, long time ago that I know is still out there, and it's, it's out there. And hopefully there could be a day where I could maybe come forward and talk about it. But
so are
that
you
was
saying
the-
you're a UFO UAP guy now, Lee Starks?
I'm a little bit, yeah.
Toe
maybe
in
a
the
little bit.
line. You're
Maybe
toe
a
in the
little
line.
bit. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was enough to make me write a book, so
Sure
it
thing.
had
Yeah.
some effect. I hear that, like, Gary Nolan.
Yes.
I hear his story about when he was a little kid, and I think he was maybe on a paper route or something, and he saw something then, right? And Gary is strictly science. I mean, his bullshit meter is very small. You're not going to get much past him. He wants evidence. And I think that's a good way to be. I really do. There was something that happened to me before the government that two experiences, but I can't say they were like UFO related, right? They were more of a kind of a spiritual thing.
Sure.
But when I look back at all the things in my life, those two things are very profound to me still. And there's a couple people that I've talked to them about. One, we're on All Things Unexplained, so this is the perfect time. One was I was working part-time. I think I might have been in high school at a butcher shop, right? And while I was working, I almost had like this voice coming on the inside. It was like I was talking to myself, only two different things, right? And I'm working, and I'm, nothing's like goofing up or causing me to, like, stop working or anything. But it was like this communication, a download maybe, was coming to me, and it told me to sort of go in the career path that I went to, and to always be ready and always train, always be prepared, because there's going to be a time where whatever this voice was is going to call upon me to, have to help, whatever that is. And that conversation went on for probably, like, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. As a kid, it was fascinating. And then it was also concerning because, like, all right, am I schizophrenic or something?
Sure.
Where's this voice coming from?
Right.
But no, it was almost like one of those downloads that they talk about. And it was very profound, and it's what changed my life in terms of career choices. I always thought, well, what's the craziest kind of warrior or law enforcement or whatever? And this is going to sound silly. At the time, Miami Vice was on, right? And
Hearing those drums,
maybe that's what that guy was telling me to do something like that, right?
Crocodile tubs.
Yeah, exactly. And so I thought, okay, maybe I could do something like that, right? And then the sensible side of me said, well, if you're going to go to college, you're probably not going to end up like Crocodile Tubbs or any of those guys. So you're going to need a backup plan. And so I chose chemistry as a backup plan. Thought, well, if the whole, secret agent thing doesn't work out, maybe the chemistry thing will. But as it turned out, the other one over.
You might have had Phil Collins in your CD changer.
Oh my God, I love that song.
Or may not have been after UFO crash retrieval teams somewhere. So
yeah, exactly.
That would be some good tunes to head after, on the hunt for some UFO crash retrieval teams. And everybody needs to check out your book on Amazon, Orbit by Lee Starks. And Lee, I wanted to ask you, just brought up this voice in your head. Is it possible this, or maybe that's not the best way to describe it, this download, this voice, but is it possible that this was the same voice as the man that your wife had an encounter with at your near-death experience?
I don't know. I need evidence, right? I'm that guy, unfortunately.
And what's your
I'm-
theory on that guy? Like, what do you think about that encounter?
You know, looking back on that whole thing, I'm a Christian, right? I believe in Jesus. I believe in all the stories of the book. But I don't necessarily believe that is the end of, that's the only, how can I say this without people going, well, you're not really a Christian if you're that open-minded, right? But God's got a big wand. He can do whatever he wants. And even the others that have near-death experiences maybe come back, and for them it was a wonderful journey to places that I obviously didn't go. I only made it to the first room, and some of these people like zip through the universe and, meet other people. Bill Letson, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he had a near-death thing. And he was a guy that I went to. I was having trouble like talking about it to other people. And so I sort of searched out some crazy guy that had a crazy career that it happened to that I could relate with, right? It was Bill. And after talking to him, he led me to another guy, and that's John Alexander. And I hope John doesn't get upset with me for mentioning his name here, but that guy is a guy like you guys described earlier. He don't care about being in front of the camera. He don't care about all the limelight on him. He's out there like searching for whatever the answers are. And he made a comment to me that I'm not yet willing to like agree with him. But one of his things said, well, Lee, these aliens, they a lot of times take people, you've heard those stories. I'm like, yeah, well, who's to say that they haven't figured out a way to snatch your soul out and give you a tune-up?
Ooh.
I'm like, as much as I don't want to like even consider that, if whatever that room was that I was in, I always felt there's technology here, right? This big wall it's just like a perfect big screen TV. And so then John's voice is like chirping in my head, in my memory of our conversations. And I don't know what to think. I want more evidence. And are they all connected? Possibly. The fella that I told you that was sort of like in that room with me to my right, in one of those downloads, I got his name, right? I just feel in my soul that his name was Tarek, Tereq. And I don't know why, but that was a name that I woke up the next day and I had the guy's name, right? That dude there, his name was Tarek. I know it was. And then it caused me to think, well, in the book, I don't want to give the book away, but sort of these stories find their way into the book. And there's a part in the book where Jack Riggs, our main character of the book, learns that he has sort of a guardian angel that is assigned to him, right? Because Jack is asking this without giving it all away. He's asking questions to a being that he can't decide if it's human or non-human or whatever. And the person tells him, I'm just assigned to you, dude. I can't answer any of the other questions about anything else. I'm only with you, and your daughter is with so-and-so, and we're assigned to who we're assigned.
Yeah.
And so that came out in the book. And when you get to that point in the book, you're either going to super duper love this book or you're going to really hate it, I guess.
I love it
don't know.
already. No, people are going to love it. They're going to love it. I
Yeah.
want to go back real quickly.
Mhm.
Tell me the words that the guy said to your wife on the street, real quick. What did he say to your wife?
It was something like, hey, I want to ask you a question. Does your husband know how lucky he is with what he has? And
All right, Lee, I hate to break this to you, but your wife must be smoking hot.
she is.
Because he was saying, does he know how lucky he is to have you?
Yeah.
About your wife.
Yeah. I think she is. She's a beautiful soul. I mean, she really is. And
he was hitting on your wife right before you had a heart attack.
You know, I still to this day remember almost exactly what this guy looks like. Do you know who Ron Howard is? The movie guy.
Opie.
Remember his brother?
Oh yes.
Kind of looked like him, actually, right? And when you think of his brother, mostly in the horror movies he's been in, right? It's like kind of a strange thing. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I when I first saw the guy walking down the sidewalk heading towards us, I'm like, God, that dude looks like Cliff Howard. That poor guy. No, Cliff, if you're listening, I think you're awesome.
Hitting on your wife. That's what happened.
Well, maybe it was. I don't know.
Yeah. Does your husband know how lucky he is with what he has? You
and then 5 minutes later,
in your car.
He got so worked up he had a heart attack. He's got to settle down.
Not to take anything away from your experience. I just,
No, it's all good. It's all good. We roll with it, right?
I'm just teasing you.
That might be a good time to, speaking of hotheads, to hit up some hot takes real quickly.
I wasn't saying hotheads. I was talking about his hot wife.
Yeah, but I was saying Lee got hot under the collar and had the heart attack.
I'm blushing.
All right, let's get into some hot takes.
Yeah, we'll just hit a few here because we're running a little bit over our time. So we really appreciate you joining us tonight, Lee, and being so gracious with your time. No. We appreciate your time. And I kind of want to hit on this real quick because this has been going around the UFO community. And I think you might be the perfect person to finally let us know. For sure, is Dick Cheney the UFO cabal leader?
If he ain't, he should be, right? God, doesn't it seem like that dude died like 15 years ago and is still walking around?
Oh, yes.
Let's move on. That's going to turn into politics.
Moving on, it is hot takes, so it's perfectly fine to move right along. Now, we've heard a lot that the next phase of UAP investigation is really going to be USO investigation, so unidentified submerged objects, Lee. And we've had astrophysicists who study the UFO phenomenon on with us, and they've told us that, hey, they've briefed AARO and any three-letter organization you can think of, and the one thing they all asked their organization, UAPX, is what are your capabilities of observing and detecting UAPs underwater? They all asked that. So what's your take on USOs?
I think that anything that happens under the water is so classified and over the security of what happens underwater that I don't see that coming to the light of day. The sensors that are aboard our submarines and even some of the ships, I know people firsthand that have told me some of the speeds that they're clocking these things at is off the charts. But I don't think that we'll, unless the whole dam breaks and everything comes out, I don't see where that's going to move forward in the USO. I think that, you'll get some chatter of, oh yeah, boy, they're underwater and they're really fast. And, we don't have anything to compare to that. But in terms of like real evidence, I don't see them releasing anything underwater. If something comes, if we get a video of something underwater, it's probably not going to come from our Navy or Coast Guard. It's going to come from maybe cameras that are on an oil rig, or, possibly some fishermen that might have cameras, or, some of the sonars that are on board fishing vessels now it's almost like LiDAR. I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to see that. It's just amazing, some of the stuff that is out there in the private sector. And if we do get anything, it's probably going to come, I feel it's going to come from there, and nothing will be released from our government.
I think you're right. And I think that we've heard this summed up before.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
That's one of our favorite quotes from the first UAP.
Yeah, closed session.
One Ronald Moultrie.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
We'll just save that for later, table that. Lee, we'd like to think of this as the keystone event in ufology. What do you think about the Roswell incident, 1947?
Yeah, I think that happened. I think that there was such a, think back in those days, communications back and forth, right? Nothing like our cell phones and instant information that we have now. So you got a base commander that, got called out to a crash, and oh shit, we got a flying saucer. And then that gets released pretty quickly. And then headquarters finds out, DC finds out, no, we got to back that up. That didn't, just say it didn't happen. I believe that's what happened with that. Now, the interesting part, there's a couple people out there that have a few different takes on it, like Diana Pasulka, Annie Jacobs. She thinks that she had good information with her reporting, and it being a Russian craft, and they had Russian children in it, right? I don't know that I can buy that. Just knowing the technology that was available then, I have a hard time seeing a country on the other side of the world remote control flying something. Let's just say that, maybe they could do remote control. Could they do it halfway around the world? I don't buy that. I think that there was probably more than one crash site out there in New Mexico. Without going into, this location is dancing in an area that I've been in the past, and so I believe it happened.
Okay.
That's
We'll
good
take
enough
that.
for us. For
Yeah.
sure.
Hot take. I believe it happened.
I believe that, have you read Corso's book?
Yes.
I mean, I've heard about the day after Roswell.
Sure.
Corso's
Sorry,
book,
it's sort of an inside joke.
I'm sorry.
No,
Am I going down
no,
the wrong rabbit hole?
No, Tim for like 2 years told me that I had to read The Day After Roswell. He kept saying it, harping on it. Every time we'd get off the phone, he would be like, go read The Day After Roswell, go read The Day After Roswell. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. And then I finally read The Day After Roswell. And
Yeah.
I'm in. I went down all the rabbit holes.
I think that it was an enjoyable book to read. I got a guy. That's one thing that I always say back home. Hey, I got a guy. You need something? I got a guy. Well, I got a couple of guys that knew him and knew him before he died. And they tell me that, some of the stuff is to sell a book. You got to sell a book. But several parts of it are like spot on, I could imagine, think back in the 1940, 47, imagine the world that we lived in then after World War II. We still don't have remote controls for television sets, right? We still don't have night vision. We still don't have a lot of things that today we just assume has always been. And I could see where, even if it's let's pretend for a moment, it is a UFO and somehow managed to put gas in the tank in some other galaxy and got it here and then crashed, right? That's always the problem I always have with these things. How can you transverse the universe and crash here? Doesn't make sense. But let's say it did. Now you go out there and you find that, and you're with 1940s technology, tubes, and I don't even think transistors were in yet. And now you find technology or bits and pieces of it that just it doesn't even make sense. It's so far off a scale of brain registry that I don't even know what I'm looking at here. What is this? Why wouldn't you give chunks of it out to different contractors and in the Defense Department to say, hey, take a look at this, figure it out? They're going to go, well, what is it? And we're going to go, I don't know. We got it from, over in Russia, or Germany had it in one of their underground locations. We don't know what it is. You tell us. And so I could see bits and pieces of stuff like that going out there, Why not?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And maybe while I've got you here, you could help me settle something or figure something out. I've been on this for quite a while. I've always felt like with Day After Roswell, it's been one of my particular skills that I can dig into one specific little thing, right, and figure this out. And I felt like with Day After Roswell, you brought up night vision. He mentions night vision was derived from reverse engineering of technology found at Roswell. And I thought, you know what? If that should be easy to trace, because basically, like, okay, my cell phone, this computer, every piece of technology, it seems like that we've got or have ever had. The cotton gin, for goodness sakes, Eli Whitney, right? I grew up in the great state of Mississippi and learned a lot about the cotton gin, Eli Whitney. But every piece of technology, we can completely trace its entire history all the way to the notes that the inventor scribbled in the notebook on the way to its invention. And I said, you know what? This ought to be easy with night vision goggles. And you know what? It wasn't easy at all to trace the origin of night vision. It seems like maybe it came from just the Army, right? Like just Army R&D. And it just doesn't seem to have come from any specific person whatsoever. But can you shed any light on night vision?
Again, imagine receiving some technology that is so far beyond what you have that what a couple different people have told me that some of the skin of these crafts that they become almost translucent. You can't look in from the outside, but from the inside you can see all around. And so that would be like a really cool version of night vision, right? Only times 1,000 years from now or 500 years from now. And so that's your starting piece. Well, what am I going to do with that? It's 1947. I don't even know what this is. Well, somebody had to figure it out. And so one of the first versions of IR night vision still required lights, right? If you had a full moon out, you could see stuff. And we're going back to probably Vietnam era. And the quality of it then, for the guys that received them, they were pretty big devices and, took up a lot of space, heavy, real heavy. But I can see across this field. That's really cool. Okay. Now look at some of the night vision stuff that we have now that's available in the civilian market. You can get Gen 3 night vision, in multiple locations on Google. Just Google NVS 14 and you can buy them. They're out there. And now they're small, compact, it's like Joe Rogan always says, you know what we do here? We build things and we build them better every time. Even if they don't need to be better, that's what we do. And so whoever figured that out from that machine that's like 1,000 years advanced and got us that 8-pound lead weight in the Vietnam era that can see across the field and helped, that's great. And it's just getting progressed more and more and more. But that's the stuff we know about. What's the stuff we don't know about? They may have chemicals that we don't know about. I'm a chemist, so I had to get chemistry in, right? There could be, they could have all kinds of different, just use your imagination and go sci-fi for a minute.
Yeah,
all that
that's right.
stuff is possible. What's one roadblock that the human race hasn't jumped over that hurdle yet, And if we haven't, it's only because it's in front of us. It's not behind us. We've hopped every hurdle along the way. And so
I love what Neil deGrasse Tyson said about chemicals. He said chemicals, they get a real bum rap. You look at your food and some of these chemicals in it have these long, complicated names, and they just sound like something out of a horror movie, right? And he said that, chemicals, I don't look at them in such a bad way. He said, all my best friends are made out of chemicals. So I don't look at chemicals so
Okay.
bad. But I tell you who I feel bad about. I feel bad for the poor dude that perhaps did behind the wall of research and development for the military or for a private firm, did finally break the barrier of night vision through his bits and pieces of the Roswell crash that he or she may have had. And when we have shows, documentaries on Netflix about the dude that invented Tetris, for example. We know all about him, but we don't know squat about, and he's like a billionaire now, but we don't know squat about the dude that finally broke the night vision barrier.
And,
But
every time that question comes out, you'll hear somebody from the government come forward and say, oh, that's not true. We started, at this time and that time. And there will be a trail, right? But there's going to be a trail on any of these goodies, because at some point we do figure some things out, but it's like the baby version of them, right? And the crap that these UFOs had is so far beyond, that's like the last hurdle in the race, right? And we're still like midpoint or just started the race. And so I think fiber optic was another one that,
oh yeah,
and there was a time that I always thought, this is going back to what CJ said, you are a UFO nerd. No, I'm not actually, but I think about it occasionally. And I always thought, when I heard of SETI, I actually went out there one time and checked it out and saw all the dishes. And I went to Arecibo and was there. And I'm thinking, even back then, why would they spend all this money in hopes of sound, in hopes of frequency? What if they're using light, pulsed light, and putting information in light? None of this shit is going to pick any of that up, right? It just, to me, it didn't seem like a well thought out. If you guys are actually searching for life out there, why have you limited it to a spectrum of a frequency range? It just seems too narrow to me.
that's right. And meanwhile, before we move on to the next hot take, I want to encourage everybody out there, if you've never watched the story of the lady that invented Jenga, I encourage you to watch her story. It's quite inspiring. I'm sorry. It's the same documentary as the Tetris invention. So we'll move on. I only have two more quick ones for you, Lee.
Yeah.
While I've got you here, I feel like it's really important because not too long after Roswell, we hear about this potential meeting between one of our presidents and perhaps an alien race. So
that's an
what's your
awesome one, isn't it?
Oh yeah. And what's your take
Well,
on does our government have an agreement with at least one alien race?
Why would it just, if one has come here, right? It's a big universe out there. How is it that in that whole universe, we think we're the one that's here and only one could find its way here? So to me, that's not logical. If there's one, there has to be more than one, I would think. And some of them may show up in orbs. Some of them, because that's it. It could be a whole life thing that we don't even understand. Some, I call it, fill up their tank with gas and fly here from somewhere else, which the belief is that that one particular president, was out there in the Air Force Base, and they landed, and they met. Yeah, I think I believe it. Why not? If it's true, if any of this shit is true, all it is a snowball, right?
Mhm.
So are you saying that, well, okay, maybe there was a crash at Roswell, but that's it? Well, if there was a crash at Roswell, why wouldn't some of these other things, what do you think, they only had one spacecraft? No.
And somebody was driving or
somebody was
controlling it.
Yeah, right. And I've heard people say, well, if it were us and this was another planet, first we would send drones. Yeah, sure we would. And then, we might send a recon team. And this kind of gets into the book too. There's a sort of a scary version of this in the book. What do recon teams do? They just sit and watch. They don't interact. If you're a sniper and you got a sniper's hide somewhere, it most likely, the odds are real good that you're not there to like shoot someone. You're there to observe, take notes, figure shit out, report back. And so there's a whole scale of just that to this, right? There's a whole scale of the drone stuff. And then at some point, got to meet somebody, got to have a meeting. And so, that's would be further up the chain of command than the people just watching. And so, yeah, I think if they are here at some point, they probably are either gonna talk to somebody or have talked to somebody. And it just seems like the timing would have been good back there. When you throw into that time frame, and then look how much we've advanced with stuff, just stuff. Your cell phone, that cell phone you have now is a bigger computer than you had 10 years ago, than your desktop was 15 years ago. And so
Then the space shuttle, then the Apollo.
Well, the one thing that I like to say about that, a couple people asked me, and why, if you had a space program and you flew around space shuttles, why would you just end it and not have a backup plan? And they're like, what do you mean? I go, the space program just stopped. There's no more space shuttles. And we're not getting these cool films of a space shuttle on a 747. All that is done. Do you think they just quit? Or do you think they got something better that they don't want to tell us yet? And so, is it NHI or is it us?
Or did they ever go to the moon?
That's another question. I always thought that was nonsense, right? And then I heard, I can't remember who it was that was talking, but they were very thorough and very scientific and did the math on how much fuel it would have actually took to fly to the moon.
That's right.
And I'm not capable of doing that kind of math. He sounded smart. So I'm like, yeah, right on. That sounds good. I like that guy.
Same.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's pretty far away. I know that.
Yes. Well, Lee, you are such a knowledgeable guy. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot of you in the UFO, UAP podcast circuits. I
want to be low key.
Okay, then we'll keep you for our own. We'll just keep you here for our own. I said I wanted to be low key too, mind you.
Yeah, and here we are, right?
4 years later.
Yeah.
Still on the air, yes. But everything that you have shared with us is so fascinating, and I cannot wait to read your book. I know that I'm going to be messaging Tim like, did you read this part? Have you seen this part yet? Did you read? What do you think he meant by that?
Just be aware, some salty language. some military type humor.
That's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not worried about that one bit.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep telling myself, this is fiction.
It is.
It's fiction.
It is. It's fiction. It's a great story though. And the cast of characters, I think every one of them is unique. I've been asked, who do you think your writing style is? And have you read any Elmore Leonard books? Or
I don't think so, no.
He did like Get Shorty and Jackie Brown, those types of books, right?
Yeah.
And when you're reading those books, he never describes the person in the book. You build that.
You just get their character.
You build it in your own brain, right? To me, that's a master of his craft.
Sure.
I just read this whole story and this character. I know exactly what he looks like just based off of his voice inflections or his mannerisms, and you put it together. And so I tried to do that a lot in this book too.
Oh, cool.
Where I don't really describe the people. It's up to you to put that voice of that person and build that character. And so I think I did okay on that one.
Yes.
I'm kind of proud of that, obviously, right? I'm talking
Absolutely.
about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Tim, any further questions before we wrap it up for the night?
Well, I think we do have one listener question that we want to get to. And then Lee did tell me before we came on tonight that he would be interested in coming back sometime with us, perhaps.
Yeah.
And because we have so much more that we could definitely talk about. And that's the thing about ufology. There's more every day. There's more and more every day.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
So Lee, this is, let's see, a great question. Sam from New York. Do real UFO crash retrieval teams exist? And what do you think they might have discovered so far?
Wow, isn't that a great question?
Be careful. Be careful with it.
Yeah. Now, it would be more believable if we were retrieving something that we built ourselves, right? But you don't need to know what it is that we're retrieving because it's so secret and so secure. And that could give an appearance of, we have recovery teams picking up spacecrafts, right? And so, yes, I believe that retrieval teams do exist. I believe that some defense contractors have their own teams, and I don't think they play nice. And I think that our military also has some retrieval teams. The question is, what exactly is it they're retrieving? Is it someone else's or is it ours? Or could it be something from Russia or China? I believe that the Earth is categorized up into zones. South America and North America is kind of ours. We have to cooperate with those countries, obviously, but it would be hard pressed for us to fly into China with a recovery team, right?
Right.
But maybe a little easier in Brazil. You make that phone call and say, hey, we just lost something down there. We're going to be there. We're going to pick it up. Stay away. And I believe that stuff like that can happen. And so it's in the book. It's in the book.
Hey, perfect.
Pick up your copy today.
Find it, the link in the description.
Hey,
so fun.
I've got it's in paperback now and hard, and it's also on Kindle. And you can just go on Kindle and read it for free if you have whatever the Kindle membership is, or and also if you don't have it, you can read a few chapters. I think I didn't actually ever go on there and start pushing the button, but it'll give you an idea of what it is, and if you like it, great. And if you don't, then that's too bad. It's too sad.
Well, I hope that everybody who listens goes out and picks up a copy and then come back to this video and give us your opinion. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about Lee's book, Orbit.
Yeah, I want to say before we go, man, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was a new thing for me, and it's kind of a surprise. When I started writing this book, I wasn't writing it for anyone, just for myself. I had like zero plans of putting this out there. And Mary Lou, the lady that we talked about in the beginning, I sort of give it to her and I said, listen, you got to do me a favor. If this is a piece of crap, tell me. Don't let me put myself out there. She's like, I'm blaming it on her. She said, oh no, this is really good. You got to keep going, you know? And one thing that we didn't talk about in the book, I can get this out real quick. Yeah. There's an ongoing side story in the book with the main characters, Jack Riggs, and his daughter is, her name's Kat. And so because Kat was in chapter 1 and experienced seeing that, well, there's storyline that keeps bringing Kat back into it. Oh. And the next book is going to really bring Kat into it big time. And cool. Here we have this super, super sweet, of course, because it's fiction, totally athletic, super smart, you know, hits all those punch marks. And when I wrote this book, I do this thing when I'm going to write. The whole tenor of the book on this one is honor, integrity, right? Those words come to mind. Yes. That's what I want this book to be, honor, integrity. And the next book is revenge. And so one of the things my editor, when we're writing this, she's like, nobody's died yet. When are you going to kill somebody? I mean, you know, you did all this stuff at work. Surely this is going to be a bloody book, right? And it just, it became this experience of being part of this team and seeing how it functions, you know? Yeah. And I was like, no, that's more important than killing people. We can kill people anytime, you know? And so book 2 is revenge.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I hope you'll come back and join us when book 2 comes out so we can talk about that one.
Awesome. I'd love it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everybody who has joined us. Thank you, Lee, for your time and all of your insight. I've loved every second of it, and we will look forward to the next time. Tim, I'm going to throw it to you for final remarks.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks again to Lee Starks for joining us tonight. Pick up your copy of Orbit. You can get it in the link in the show description. I bought it on Kindle, and it is a great, harrowing read. I mean, it's really perfect for somebody that likes UFOs, for somebody that likes action, intense drama. It's got it all. I really enjoy it. And Lee, I can't wait for the sequel and have you back on again. And
can we give away a free copy to our 12,000th subscriber?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
We're going to give away
we are close. I also would like to give away one to a commenter from earlier. Let's check where we're at. We're at 11,997. So
we need 3.
We've been gaining.
All right, Gates, hit that subscribe button. Murphy, I know you're watching.
12,000th gets a free copy of the book.
I also want to send one to UFO Intros for joining us tonight. I know they've been tuned in, and so I've got their contact information on Twitter. They're joining us from X as well, and they have a great show. And I know they would love your book, Lee, and they would probably welcome you on UFO Intros as well. Another great Twitter space show there. So
send me their address, and I'll give it my John Hancock and tell them thanks.
Wonderful.
Our 12,000th subscriber, we're going to get you a signed copy of Orbit by Lee Starks. That is pretty exciting. So hit those subscribe buttons, folks. And then after you've hit the subscribe buttons, get off your screens for a little while and go outside, look up in the skies. Maybe you'll find some orbs. Maybe you'll find a Starlink in the sky or a satellite. Get out in the woods. Go camping, get away from screens, get away from technology for a while. I think it'll do you a world of good. You may not see a UFO. Okay, you may not spot a Bigfoot, but you might just find yourself out there somewhere. Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee. And now I got to find the outro video. There it is.
All things unexplained.
What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about
Yes,
the Alaska.
we do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
All Things Unexplained is free to watch on YouTube and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to support our show, you can visit our YouTube store. Additionally, you can find us on Venmo under All Things Unexplained. Be sure to check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. All proceeds from the sales of Dr. Mounce's books on Amazon and Audible also go straight to our show.